Shalom Aleichem. The Sicha Vayeitzei Aleph is based on a Maamar that the Rabbi said on Yud Kislev Tavshin Chav Beis. It was a Shabbos Parshas Vayeitzei. And interessant, same Kriya as this year. Interesting, the Rebbe said 3 Maamarim in that Farbrengen. This was the first of 3 Maamarim. And the Maamar is written in a very different style than the Sicha, obviously, but there's incredible insight that can be learned from the Maamar. And I don't know if any of the other Magidei Shiurim are giving a shiur on the Maamar, but that's what we're going to do this time. I'm going to try to do it quickly, but some incredible insights that are learned from the Maamar. And if you're watching the video, I'm going to share the screen. Otherwise, I'm just going to try to say it in the original Lashon. Okay, it goes like this. The Rebbe starts the Maamar on the words which is Parshas Vayeitzei. Now this bracha, which was said to Yaakov, is connected after to Shmid Shabbos, like the Chazal say, Avraham, that she'ein kasu by Shmid Shabbos, he only received the land, or in another nusach, the velt b'middle, with measurement. But Yaakov, that it after says Shmid Shabbos, like it says in the Parsha in Vayishlach. He rested by the city, and the Medrash explains. He came as the sun was setting, and he set up Tchum Shabbos while it was still Erev Shabbos. In other words, he took it very seriously. So Yoresh Etzorelam, he conquered the world without a midah. And how do we know that? But that's the Yom of came to find the Negma. So you see, there's no midah, and it's explained in the Mefarshim that the kavanah is not that Avtzon didn't keep Shabbos, because Avtzon clearly said, it says by Avtzon Vayishma Mishmartim Mitzvah. And the Chazal say, and Rashi brings it, that even the halachas of B'divrei Chatzeiros Avtzon. So, but the kavanah is that it wasn't explicit as a detail. Shmir Shabbos wasn't a specific attention derech that, but rather derech klal al kol hatayv. But by Yaakov, it's specified by Shabbos, and therefore the bracha for that is connected with Shmir Shabbos, derech pratach. And so too it says in the Gemara, whoever gives oineg on Shabbos, they give him nachla bli meitzodim, similar like Yaakov, without limits. Not loik Avtzon v'loik Yitzchak, but rather v'chalticha nachlas Yaakov. I'll give you the nachla of Yaakov, which is totally expensive. With Tzarech Love, and the Rebbe asks the question, the Maamar Shabbos is doch something that's tali b'zman. More so, first you have to count 6 days and only then Shabbos. It's very limited in time, and there's a whole lead up. And so too it says Mishatarach Berev Shabbos, which includes the 6 Yimei Chol, Yechol b'Shabbos. So in other words, Shabbos not only is limited within 24 hours, but the whole week is a build-up, and it's specific. Each day of the week has its energy as it leads up to Shabbos. So because Shabbos is Tali B'Zman, which is Medidav Agbala, so what's the connection of Shabbos to the idea of Faratz the Hepech of Medidav Agbala? We also have to understand the Chiluk in Shmir Shabbos Gufa itself, that when Shmir Shabbos is part of the whole Torah Derech Klal, then you don't get Faratz. But when Shmir Shabbos is Derech Prat, like by Yaakov, you do get Faratz. In order to this, we have to explain what the Rebbe focused on in earlier Maamarim, that in Shabbos there are 3 bechinas. Mali the Shabbata, the eve of Shabbos, Yom the Shabbata, the day of Shabbos, and in Shabbos itself there are 2 bechinas: the Tefillah and the Suda of the morning, and the Tefillah and the Suda of the Vayeitzei. Now, by Vayeitzei, which is the last time of the final time of Shabbos Menucha time, we say Ata Echad L'Shimcha Echad U'Miki Amcha Yisrael Gayechad Ba'aretz. Tiferet Gedula B'Tes Yeshua Menucha, etc. Now we have to understand why in this tefillah some of the things are repeated a few times. We also have to understand what's dafke menucha by Vayeitzei. Why menucha is the theme? L'chayda menucha is in the whole Shabbos. Even by Shabbos evening, Friday night, you have menucha. Adarabba, because Friday night follows the avodah nigiyah b'sheish me'achol, then the menucha is seen more. Levi Avtzon's point, that's why so many people fall asleep, because they're partially enjoying the menucha Friday night meal, partially enjoying it. But the Chor, you see it more than Vayeitzei, you see it more than Yom the Shabbat. And here is where the Rebbe brings the Mittel Rebbe, that he brings in the Sicha as well, in the Maamar Ata Echad, that the Tefillah of Ata Echad is split into 4 halakim. And within each chelik, you have the three kavim of chesed, gvura, tiferes, the way they are in the four levels. Why? Is the three kavim. Echad is chesed. As it's known, the Rebbe quotes from the Shemus of the Tzemach Tzedek, the Ato is chesed, because chesed is gilui, and Ato is gilui, I see you directly. Shimcha echad, your name is gvura. Why? Because shame is only gilui lezulas. It's only, my name is so that you could identify me, not that I could identify myself, and that's gvura. Because gvura is about how you relate to the zulas. And there are a few nekudas in that. Number one, why is gvura connected to the zulas? Because the etzem mitzius hazulas, the mere fact that there is somebody, another thing outside of you, is mitzad simtzum. Because if it was mitzad gilui, there's no mitzius v'zul. It's pure revelation. It's pure oneness. Only because the hagbala of the gilui, therefore, because Hashem almost is makbil is therefore there's space for me. If Hashem just shine chesed into the world without gvura, there's no veld. So gvura allows for a zulas. And the second nekuda is, even after the zulas is created, whatever they receive through the shame is only ha'ara. Because the shame is not, through the shame you don't get the etzem, but only in the other. And that's the meaning of gvura, so holding back. And the Rebbe says more so, the idea of shame is the ischalkus into asius, the way it divides into asius, and ischalkus is gvura. Fine, each one of these things is a share in itself. And then the third one, mikam chisal ge'echad ba'aretz, is tiferes, because Yisrael is Yaakov, and Kav Avtzon, Yisrael shavacha espar lash oisi is tiferes. So after we mentioned the three things, chesed, gvura, tiferes, now he brings it out in the second time. That's why he says tiferes gedula va'teres Yeshua yemenucho kedusha lam chanasata. Why Tiferes Gedula? Tiferes Gedula is Chesed, because like it says, L'cha Habaya Gedula, and Gedula is Chesed. Even though it has the word Tiferes over here, the point is the Tiferes of the Gedula. So the Gedula is the main idea. Ateres Yeshua is Gvura. Why? Because Yeshua means that you were in a situation of Meitzer, and you needed to break out of it. You had a Menagid, and then it's Sachin, you break over the Menagid. And to stand against the menagid, you need gvuras. And then your menucha kedusha lam chanasata is tiferes, because menucha is shalom, and shalom is iskalus, the connection of two things, two opposites, like it says in Chassidus. And after that, you say it again the third time. Avram Yagel is chesed, Yitzchak Yiranin is gvura. It's easy to understand. Yaakov anav Yenucha is tiferes. And Dafka Yanuchu Vai by Yaakov, because Menucha is by Lekava Avtzon, as we just said in the second letter. And then the fourth time, Menuchas Avanadava is Chesed. Avanadivos, generosity is Chesed. Menuchas Shalom Hashkit Vavetach is Tiferes, because Shalom again is the Skalas. And between that, you say Menuchas Emes Ve'emuna. Emuna is when you don't see something. So Heder the is mitzad gvura, and therefore emes v'emuna refers to gvura, and therefore it says menuchas emes v'emuna between Avan and Dav and Shalom Hashkit Vetach, because the seder is chesed gvura tiferes. But we still have to understand why after that it says menucha shleima shata leitzabah. This is a meirik and Maamar. It's beautiful nekudas. I never learned any of this till I learned this Maamar. You can never look at Ata echad, the Shimcha echad, the Tefillah again the same way. You just can't. Now, we mentioned that these three Kavim Chesed Gvura Tiferes are mentioned four times. They're four madlegas, and in general they're split into two madlegas, two of two. Shtayim Sheinam. The way the Gimel Kavim are before the Tzimtzum and Achar Tzimtzum. Ata echad, etc. is Gimel Kavim K'may Shehim Kedem Tzimtzum. Because before Tzimtzum, Oil and Seif was everywhere. There was no room for the lack of Achdus Hashem. And therefore it says in all the three Kavim, Ato Echad, Echad, Shimcha Echad. And what's the third one? Umikam Chisol Goy Echad. Yeah. Because before the Tzimtzum, everything is Achdus. But after they come into Tzimtzum, then there is Chalkus. So sorry, it's not Shtaim Shein Arba. The first level is Lifnei Tzimtzum, and the next three are after Tzimtzum. And B'zeh Gufa, there are various Madlegas. Tiferes Gedula, etc., is the way the Gimel Kavin are B'chinas HaKeser, Atik and Nadich, and L'maylo Yeser in B'chinas Ak, Adam Kadman, which is even higher than Ishtalshlus. And the difference is that before the Tzimtzum, they were Biskalus of a Helem, and after the Tzimtzum, they're Biskalus. And therefore, there's the Lashon Nesina, Nasata, you could give over. There's finally the ability of sharing that you could give. It's only Gilu Helem. And then it says Avam Yagel, etc., which is the Gimel Kav in the way they are in the Esser spheres, Bishtalshlus, specifically in Midas. And even when Moichin, but the three intellectual midas, but the way they're connected to midas, the three intellectual spirits, the way they're connected to midas, as we know, the others are the three midas of Chesed, V'ur, Tiferes. That's what's the connection, Avam Yagel, etc. And over here, there's already a limit because there's a slapshus b'kelim. So therefore, it doesn't say Nesina because it's not just passing over from the shus to shus, but no change, which was in the previous level of Ak. But over here, the kelim actually affected, so it's different. Nesina usually means what I gave is what you received. But over here, it's not that way, because the kelim actually have an impact on the earth. And then finally, Menuchas Avanadava, the way they are in Netzach Chayt Yesod. So basically, you see within all these kavin, the entire Seder Ishtalshlus. Okay, now this is quite a loaded Maamar. Just give me a moment. So the Maamar continues and it explores the Tosefes beer, but for the sake of just clarity, we're going to go and move on to Ois Ches. After we refer to the four Madlegas and the Gimel Kavin, we add another Nekuda, and that is Menucha Shlema Shata Leitzava. And that is the level of Pshitus Ein Sof, higher than any line, Chesed, V'ur, Tiferes, Torah, Veda, Gnus, Chasadim, or any of the Kavin that we did. It's higher than that. Because even Gimel Kavin before Tzimtzum, the first level, they're still Kavin. They're Achdus, but they're still different Kavin. But Menucha Shleima Shata Leitzava, the Ata Leitzava that the Eibishter wants is Pshitus L'mayla Mikavin. And it's also hidden in the word Sha'ata, because the word, the Ois Shin refers to the three Kavin. The Shin is three lines, the way they're Eskalus. In the Ois Shin, you have the three heads, the three Kavin, but ultimately they're one Ois. So these are the three Kavin, an absolute Yichud Eskalus. And Ata is Kafa Chesed. The way it's called, B'Shem Chesed B'chinas Kaf. So Sha'ata, Shin and Ata, in one word means Ata, which is B'chinas Kavin, and Shin, which is B'chinas Yichud, which are the opposite, are one. In other words, you have the absolute oneness of, even though there's Kavin, there's no Kavin. It's higher than Kavin. Shegam B'chinas Pshitus Ein Sof Shlemayla Megeder Kavin, that is nimshach into Bnei Yisrael, and therefore Yakidu B'necha V'yedu Me'itcha Menuchasam, that they'll get dafke the menucha of the Eibishter, the menucha Me'itcha Menucha Shleima Sh'ata Vayeitzei Ba. Just one more nekuda. When we say Sha'ata, we're showing that there's a level of Bechina Madega where Yichud HaKavin and Gilei HaKavin, it's all the same thing. In other words, it's no difference if they're one or if they're each one as individual and they're all Gilui. This is the level of Pshita Sein Seif L'mayla. Now, the fact that the Yid could receive this level of Pshita Sein Seif is because the level of Pshita and Neshama that we each have, Yechidah. As we know, there's many levels in the Neshama. B'chinas Pnimi, B'chinas Makif, and in Makif itself, there's Makif HaKadev, Makif HaDachik, the difference between levush, which is makiv hakodev, and the bayis, which is makiv hadachik, and therefore the makiv hakodev, the levush, is very much based on my size, etc. I wear my I'm wearing clothing that fits my size, and when I pick up my hands, my clothing are affected as well. And even bayis, which is makiv hadachik, still has epis hashaychus t'keres pnimim, and therefore that's an akbola. A house has a limit, even if you have a huge house, it's not pshitus. But the pchinas of yichida ha'atzmis is pshitus haneshama, which is higher than any pnimistic koiches, and it almost has no shaychus. Unlike the makif in the shama, which is meir in the koiches of pnimim, hirurei tshuva that we sometimes have, even though that's without preparation, it still comes into you. Pchinas yichida is legamre higher, has no shaychus to koiches pnimim. And this explains why the shining of Yechida is Dalad Amis Dafka. As we know, the person is Tefes Dalad Amis, which are further than Makif Levush and even further than Makif the Bayis. Why? Because the 4 Amis start beyond your home. Within your home, the 4 Amis don't start. The whole city is technically then like your Dalad Amis. We have references over here from Adam. In other words, this is the shine of your chida, pshittus and neshama. Okay. Rebbe continues, and Rebbe talks about. Sorry. We know that there's 2 fanim in ishtalshlus ma'ayin liyesh and ishtalshlus miyesh liyesh. When there's ishtalshlus ma'ayin liyesh, it doesn't go into the yesh totally. However, when it's yesh ha'amiti, when it comes to the yesh ha'amiti, then it goes into the yesh ha'gamar. So to pshittus and neshama, we all receive it because we're getting it from the yesh ha'amiti. The level of makif, there are different levels to each yid. But yechida, we all have the keich mesiris nefesh b'shava, as we found yidin that meiser nefesh al kiddush Hashem, simple yidin chusim yeser, no high levels, and still they had keich mesiris nefesh yechida ha'atzmis, and that's what we said. Menuchasam yakdush shmecha, on the menucha, which is the level of the Eibishter's menucha atzmus. That's what leads us to be yakdush shmecha, the ability to have Kiddush Hashem, beautiful word. Beautiful. It's beautiful insight. Okay, whatever. Beautiful chassidus. Now, al pi zeh, and according to this, we can understand why we say this till on Shabbos, because Shabbos is the revelation of Chinas Yechida, which we all have equally. Therefore, we're all equal in Shmir Shabbos, as it says in the Sicha. As we know, the mitzvah Shabbos is different than the other mitzvahs over there. There's chilukim. Like tefillin, this lev and roish, and the lev is different than the roish, and you cannot compare the roish and lev of a tzaddik to ish pashut and the other mitzvahs as well. However, Shmir Shabbos is heder; it's when you refrain from doing so. That we're all equal, even though the menucha of tzaddikim dolim is from higher things. They were doing big stuff in the 6 days of the week, bedurim, etc. However, anashim shutim, they're just stopping to work literally. But that's only the difference. The difference is what they're stopping to work from. But in the actual menucha and shvisa, we're all equal. And so too, tainig the Shabbos. Even though tzaddik and delim have the tainig Shabbos and alikus, and the ish pashad has it by eating. Nevertheless, the etzem inyan tainig is equal by both, because Shabbos is gilui b'chinas yechida that we all have equal. And this is also why on Shabbos we have the whole idea of carrying on Daled Amis, the whole idea of Daled Amis. Shvu yishtachta vayeitzei shmim, the whole idea of Eidavim, based on that pasuk. Because on Shabbos you have the revelation of Chinas Yechida, which shines through in the 4 amis of the person. And therefore we say Ata Echad on Shabbos, because with Gilia Yechida, Pshittus and Neshama, you from our Begil Yechida, that's how we're able to bring down the Pshittus Etzem Lamayla. And this is why the Chazal say Yaakov Shekas Beishmei Shabbos received the world without limits, as it says in the pasuk without any limits. Beyond any lines, etc. And Dafka Shabbos, which connected to Yechida, Pshittus and Neshama. And this was Dafka by Yaakov, even though Avram did Vayishmer Mishmarti, nevertheless, Avram's Shabbos was part of all the mitzvahs. And all his mitzvahs were b'hasago, b'kavana, and therefore, even the Shmita Shabbos was b'kavana. In other words, Keches Pnimim. It didn't have the Gilui B'chinas Yechida. But Yaakov, where it specifies they kept Shabbos, and Shmita Shabbos, it says, he rested and didn't do Leisasa, the Shabbos, which is all equal, that's connected to Yechida. And especially as we saw that he focused on Tchumin, which is similar to the Daled Amos that we spoke about Yechida. Therefore, he has the breakthrough, which B'chlal is just an amazing Fabeng. Sorry for going on and on. But yeah, worthy looking into the Maamar.